Hello everyone and welcome back to Headband Crochets. Today we are going to make this big bow headband or the big bow ear warmer. Okay, so the materials that we are going to use, that I'm using today, is Caron 1 pound. It's a medium weight 4, and any medium weight 4 yarn should work for this project. And then I'm going to be using an eye hook, which is a 5.5 millimeter hook. And then of course you'll need a pair of scissors. And then optional is a yarn needle if you choose to, if you like to sew things together instead of crochet them together, or if you like weaving in your tail with the needle instead. So let's go ahead and get started. So this tutorial, like I said, is for an adult average, like kind of medium, so it'll be about 22 to 23 inches fitting. And you can find the other sizes in my pattern on Etsy, which is in the description box below. So the first thing we're going to do, of course, is make our slip knot. And I'll leave a little bit of a tail here because I'm going to use that tail at the end. But I'm going to use this, start my slip knot. And then I'm going to make a foundation chain of 72. So go ahead and chain out 72. I'm actually going to chain them not super loose, but I'm going to chain them pretty loose because for this headband, I'm going to use the back bumps. So I'm just going to chain loosely until I get to 72 chains. And the reason why is so this is which side is the bottom? This is the bottom of the headband, and I didn't want like a foundation chain there. I wanted more of a cleaner look down there. So go ahead and chain out your 72 chains, and then I'll meet you there and show you what's next. All right, so once you have your chain of 72, this last chain that we made, the 72nd chain, is going to be a turning chain. So if you're not comfortable with the back bump method of doing your first row, you can just go into the regular loop here if you prefer, but we're going to skip that first chain and then single crochet into the second chain from the hook. So that last chain was a turning chain, and I'm just going to be single crocheting into the back bumps here. But if you prefer, you can just do regular single crochets, not in the back bump. I'm not very good at the back bumps. I'm still practicing those. But I do like how that look is clean and not having that foundation chain kind of exposed. But anyway, for this first row here, we're just going to be doing 1 single crochet in every stitch, and you should have 71 single crochets at the end of this row. So go ahead and finish this first row and I'll meet you there. Okay, so once you finish your first row of single crochets, go ahead and chain 1 and turn your work. And from here, what we're going to do is we're going to be using the moss stitch now. It's a really easy stitch. It works up pretty fast. And so to start off the moss stitch, we're going to put 1 single crochet into the first stitch. So single crochet in the first stitch, and then we're going to chain 1. and we're going to skip this next chain space and then single crochet into the next stitch, and then chain one, skip one stitch, and single crochet into the next stitch. So this is pretty much the repeat for the first row of the moss stitch. It has a second row that is the next repeat. So go ahead, make sure I chained one. Go ahead and just repeat this pattern until the end of the row, and then I will meet you there. All right, so when you get to the end of the row, you should have one single crochet and then 2 stitches left, and your last stitch should be the single crochet. So when you get to your second to last single crochet, we're just going to chain one like we've been doing, and then single crochet into that very last stitch of this row. And you can see there's little holes here, and that's the holes that we're going to be using in the next row. So from here, what we're going to do is chain one and turn. And then from there, so every time we're going to put a single crochet into this first stitch just to start off the row. And then for the rest, we're going to be using these empty chain spaces. They're kind of small, but you'll be able to see them. So go ahead and single crochet into that empty chain space. And then we're going to chain one and skip the single crochet from the row below, and then single crochet into the next empty chain space. And then we'll chain one and then skip this next single crochet. That one's kind of loose here. Skip that next single crochet and then single crochet into the next empty chain space, and then chain one, skip that single crochet, and then single crochet into that next empty chain space. So it's like we're doing in these rows, we're going to be doing every other, we're going to be single crocheting into the empty chain spaces only. So that's how you do the moss stitch. Every other row you're going to be single crocheting into the empty chain spaces only. So go ahead and repeat this pattern until the end of the row, and I will meet you there and show you what's next. All right, so I have single crocheted all the way down to my second to last empty chain space. So from there, I'm just going to chain one and single crochet in that last empty chain space. And then just like we did in the beginning, we're going to single crochet into that last stitch because we single crocheted into the very first stitch of this row. So single crochet in that last stitch, and then chain one and turn. And so this next row is going to be just like this very first row that we did of the moss stitch, not the row one, but row two. So once you turn, go ahead and single crochet into the very first stitch, and then chain one, and then we're going to skip this first single crochet here and then single crochet into the next empty chain space. So it's a pretty easy stitch. It's beginner friendly. It works up pretty quick because you're kind of like doing half the amount of single crochets in the row because you're chaining one in between. So go ahead and repeat this pattern until the end of the row, and I will meet you there. Okay, so I have one more single crochet left, and your last single crochet should be in that last stitch for this row. And then from here, so we did 3 rows of that moss stitch, and from here we're going to chain 1 and turn. And now we're going to change it up a little bit, and we're going to just put 1 single crochet in every stitch of this row. So we're going to put a single crochet in every single crochet and a single crochet into every empty chain space as well. So in this row you should end up with 71 single crochets. So go ahead and just put 1 single crochet in every stitch, and I will meet you there and show you what. Alright, looks like I just have 2 stitches left to make it 71 again. Alright, and then from here we're going to chain 1 and turn. So now we're going to work on this part with these little pebbles here. I believe that's called the pebble stitch. But what we're going to do is single crochet into this very first stitch, and then we're going to do our first pebble stitch. So we're going to yarn over first and then insert our hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, and then you have 3, yarn over again, insert your hook, pull up a loop, and now you have 5, yarn over one more time and insert into the same stitch again and pull up a loop. Now you'll have 7 loops on your hook. 5, 6, 7, yarn over, and then pull through all 7. And then from there we're just going to put a regular single crochet into the next stitch. And then in the next stitch we're going to repeat that pebble stitch. So yarn over first, insert your hook into that next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over again, insert again, pull up a loop, yarn over once more, and insert again and pull up that last loop so that you have 7 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through all 7. You might have to wiggle it around a little bit, just like that. So on the back side it's pretty flat still, but on the front you can see it's taking that pebble shape. Okay, and so this is pretty much the repeat. So let's do it one more time. I didn't like that single crochet there. So single crochet into the next stitch, and then in this next stitch we're going to do one more pebble. So yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, and we're going to do that a total of 3 times until we have 7 loops on our hook, and then yarn over and pull through all 7. So that is the repeat for this row. Go ahead and continue this pattern until the end of the row, and your last stitch should be a single crochet. So I will meet you there and show you what. Alright, I have 2 stitches left, and my second to last stitch needs to be that pebble cluster stitch. Oops. And then your last stitch should be a regular single crochet. And the front side, you can see they're kind of like really pronounced and poking out, and then this side that we were on, it's pretty flat. And then from here, what we're going to do is just go ahead and chain one. Whoops, I already chained one. Chain one and turn. And in this row, it's a pretty simple row. We're just going to put one single crochet on top of every stitch. So you should have 71 single crochets in this row. So we're going to single crochet in the first stitch and then single crochet on top of the cluster. And just make sure that when you single crochet on the cluster, it might look like this is the stitch here, but it's back here. So just make sure you don't go into your cluster like that. So go ahead and single crochet your way across, and then I'll meet you there. All right, so I've single crocheted across, and then from here we're just going to chain one and turn. And now we're going to repeat the moss stitch. So we're going to repeat row 2, which was the first set of moss stitches that we did. So go ahead and single crochet into that very first stitch and then chain one, skip that next stitch and single crochet into the next stitch, chain one, skip that next stitch and single crochet into the next stitch. So we're just going to repeat this pattern until the end of this row. All right, so I'm almost done with my first row of the moss stitch again. And then from there, we're just going to chain one and turn. And we're just going to repeat that second row of the moss stitch. So we're going to single crochet into the first stitch. And then we're going to single crochet into the second stitch, which is this empty chain space. And then we're going to chain one, skip that single crochet and single crochet into the next empty chain space. Chain one, skip that next single crochet and single crochet into that next empty chain space. So go ahead and repeat this until the end of the row, and I'll meet you there and show you what's next. Okay, so I have one more single crochet, well, one more empty chain space, and then in the last stitch we're just going to single crochet like we did before. All right, and then from here we're going to chain one and turn. And we're going to do one more row of the moss stitch. So we're going to single crochet in the first stitch and then skip, chain one, skip this next single crochet and single crochet into the empty chain space. Chain one, skip that single crochet and single crochet into the next empty chain space. So go ahead and repeat this pattern until the end of the row, and I will meet you there. Okay, so once you are finished with this row, your last stitch should have been, your last two should have been a chain one and then a single crochet. Next we'll chain one and turn. And in this next row, we're going to do one more row of plain single crochets across. So just one single crochet in every stitch, one in every empty chain space, and one in every single crochet of the row below. So go ahead and just do one row of plain single crochets, and all right, so once you finish your row of single crochets here, you have two options. If you just want the headband, it's about 2 inches thick or 2 inches tall. I I live in a warmer climate, so I didn't need an ear warmer actually. I just wanted more for aesthetic, you know, like an accessory, just a headband. So if you are wanting an ear warmer, we're going to repeat row 2 up into row 11. So row 2 was that first row of the moss stitch that we did, and this last stitch of single crochets was row 11. So we're pretty much just going to repeat this one more time, just to make it into an ear warmer if you prefer it that tall. So this is about 2 inches tall, and that would be about 4 inches tall for an adult, so it would definitely cover your ears and keep you warm. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat rows 2 through 11, just so I can have an ear warmer made, and then I will meet you there and show you. Alright, so I went ahead and repeated rows 2 through 11 so that I could have more of a 4-inch ear warmer instead of just a headband. And so either way, what you want to do next is we're going to fold this in half. So where you can see the clusters, that would be the front, and you can't really see them on the back side. So we're going to fold it in half so that the front is facing each other. And then we're going to turn it so that we can slip stitch these 2 edges together. So we just want to match up the rows and put 1 slip stitch in the side of every row. You could also use your needle if you prefer to sew it together. But what I'm going to do is have the side with the working loop. I'm going to have that in the back, and then I'm going to find my corner stitch of this other side and insert my hook. Actually, I meant to chain 1 here so let's do that first. I'm going to chain 1 first just so I have a little room to turn here. So chain 1 first. Okay, now I'm going to fold this together and insert my hook into that first stitch and pull up that loop through the other side. Then I'm just going to try to put 1 slip stitch in the side of every row of both sides, just trying to keep them corresponded so that it's even. So that's pretty much all I'm doing for this step, is putting 1 slip stitch in the side of the corresponding rows. So if you had if you were doing the 2-inch headband, I believe you had 11 rows here, so you should try your best to do 11 slip stitches. And if you had the 4-inch, if you're doing the 4 inches for the ear warmer, you're gonna have 20 rows. So you're gonna try to do 20 slip stitches. So 1 slip stitch in the side of every row. So go ahead and either slip stitch these together, or you can also sew them together. And actually, if you prefer, like if you like that twisted headband method, you could totally take this and do that as well. Just be creative and make it your own if you wanted to. But I'm gonna go ahead and finish slip stitching this, and I will see you there. Alright, I just have 1 slip stitch left, so I'm going to go into that corner chain there, the corner chain of both, and slip stitch. And then from here I'm going to cut and tie off, and I'm going to try to leave about a 4-inch tail like I did in the beginning, and just cut and tie. So this should be how your piece looks so far. It There we go. So yeah, so next what we're gonna do is use our two ends to kind of tie this up. So I'm gonna turn it back inside out, and I'm just gonna take one of the strings. I'm gonna take one of the strings and put it through this side here, so it's coming out the other end. And then I'm gonna take this string and I'm just gonna tie them together. I'm gonna try to keep this tie on the seam area. I'm not going to worry about it too much. It should pretty much stay there, but it's also going to be covered up by the bow, so it's not like it's that big of a deal, but I'm trying to just do it a little neat. And I'm also just trying to make it scrunch uniformly, but again, it doesn't have to be like super neat, because the bow is going to cover it up. So I'm just trying to make sure that the front side kind of folds towards the front and doesn't like stay in the back. But yeah, I'm just going to tie pretty tight a double knot here. Like that. And then I'm just going to take these two ends and kind of weave them through in the back side. So just go ahead and take your two tails after you secure them and weave them through the back side. And the way I'm going to secure mine is I'm kind of just going to, I like weaving in with a smaller hook than I'm using. This is like, I think, an F hook. Yeah. So I'm just gonna like take one tail and weave it in a little bit, kind of close to the knot here. But at some point I'm just going to pull up a loop and kind of tie off just to secure that one tail, and then I'm just going to go and weave it in regular. So I'm just trying to make sure that my double knot here doesn't come out. So I'm just going to do that for both ends. I'm going to like weave it in like once and then do like a kind of like a tie off knot just to secure it. And then I'm just going to weave it in regular. So I'm going to finish weaving it in a few more times. I don't need another knot. But yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing for the headband. So, or the ear warmer, either one. This is what it looks like so far. So I will meet you back once I'm done weaving in my ends, and I'll show you how to do. Alright, so let's start on the bow. We're just going to start off with a slip knot. I'll leave a little tail there. Start off with a slip knot, and then this tail doesn't have to be 4 inches, by the way. It's just a regular tail. So we're going to start off with a foundation chain of 28. 1, oops, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 28. Okay, and then so this 28th stitch is just a turning chain. So we're going to single crochet into the second chain from the hook, and I'm going to use the back bump again. So I'm just putting 1 single crochet in every stitch until the end of this row, and I will meet you there. You should have a total of 27 single crochets in this row. All right, so once you have your 27 single crochets, we're going to chain 1, chain one and turn. And so the bow is kind of, it's all the same stitches as the headband part. So we're just inverting what's in the middle. So in this first row, we're going to do clusters, or in this second row, rather, we're going to do the clusters, the pebble stitches. So we're just going to single crochet in the first stitch, and then do our pebble clusters in the next stitch. So we're just going to alternate that, 1, 2, and 3. We're just going to alternate that for this row, and you guys already know how to do that by now. So I will meet you at the end of this row, and I'll show you what's next. Okay, so I finished my pebble stitch row, so I'm just going to chain one and turn. Chain one and turn. And then I'm just going to put 1 single crochet in every stitch for this row. So that's all we're doing for this row. Go ahead and put your 27 single crochets here. And I will meet you at the end of this row. Alright, so I'm done with my row of single crochets, and from here I'll chain one and turn. So now I'm going to go back to the moss stitch, and we're going to do 10 rows of the moss stitch. So we're going to do that first row where we do a single crochet, chain one, skip that next stitch, and then we're going to do the alternating row, which is 2 single crochets, just so that you can be hitting that every other stitch will have the single crochet or the chain one. So we're going to do 10 rows of the moss stitch. I'll go ahead and just finish this row, and I'll start on the next row just so that as a refresher. It's such a fast stitch to do. I do really love it. And surprisingly, it doesn't give you a whole bunch of holes like you would think, because you're chaining one, that it would, you know, kind of be more lacy, I guess. But it looks pretty solid for the type of stitch that it is. Okay, whoops. And one more single crochet, and then chain one and turn. And this is the second row stitching that we're going to do, which is a single crochet in the first stitch and a single crochet in that first empty chain space, and then chain one and skip the single crochet. But again, you guys, just we're doing this for the headband, so I'm sure you already got it. So yeah, go ahead, and these are 2 rows of the moss stitch. This is the second row of it. So go ahead and continue this pattern until you have 10 rows of the moss stitch, and I will meet you there and show you what's after that. Okay, so I finished my 10 rows of the moss stitch, and from here you'll notice that this is kind of like almost like a trapezoid coming inward. That's just, you're not doing anything wrong. It's just because these cluster stitches are kind of pushing it outward, and these are just smaller stitches, so it's doing that. But it kind of works for the needs of the bow, like shaping anyway. So from here, what we're gonna do is chain one and turn, and we're gonna repeat our pebble stitch row, our cluster row. So we're just going to do a single crochet in the first stitch, and then our cluster. So we're just alternating that for this row. So go ahead and finish your cluster, one more row of clusters, and I will meet you at the end of this row and show you what's next. Alright, so I finished my row of clusters, so I'm going to chain one and turn. And from there, this is our final row of the bow. We're just going to go across with one single crochet in every stitch. So this is the last row of the bow. So go ahead and finish this row, and I will show you how we are going to attach our bow to the headband. All right, so this is what it looks like so far, and you'll see this is kind of curved. Like I said, the cluster stitches are just wider than the regular, so it's going to curve like that. That's perfectly fine. And from here, what we're going to do is chain one and cut and tie off. And you don't really need a long tail for this either. So we're going to go ahead and weave our 2 strings in first. Alright, so I have weaved in my tails, and now it's time to start the bow. So what we're going to do is actually just wrap the string around the center. We do have you should have an odd number of cluster stitches, so we're going to wrap it around. For this size, the 7th stitch is the middle stitch, the 7th cluster stitch. So 1 2 3 4 5 6, and 1 2 3 4 5 6, that's the middle. And you can count down here too and find the middle. 1 2 3 4 5 and 6. So that 7th one is the middle. So we want to take some yarn and leave quite a bit of a tail. I'm just going to leave probably let's say about 6 inches long, and I'm going to leave that 6 inches long in the back. So I'm going to find my middle. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. 7 is the middle. I'm just going to go to one side of that 7th one. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and I'm going to go on the same side as that 7th one. So this is my 7th one, and I'm to the right of it. It really doesn't matter if you're on the right or the left. We just want to stay on one side for now. So what I'm going to do is just kind of scrunch this together like that, and this side has my tail end, and this side is going with the skein of yarn. So I'm going to go around again and hit that other side of both, the other side of the center cluster stitch. So that way now I have it on both sides of the cluster stitch, and then I'm just going to pull both sides, and I'm just going to play with this so that I like how my bow is sitting. You don't want it curling all the way to the back. You don't want this front side curling all the way to the back, so I'm just going to kind of play with it to pull those up. And then I'm just going to, from here, just keep wrapping, and every time I wrap, I'm going to pull it tighter. So I'm going to wrap again with this string that has the skein to it, and just go across, trying to lay the string close by where I just laid it, at the same time holding this tail tight. So I'm just wrapping it around, and I'm going to continue wrapping it until I completely cover this middle cluster stitch. So I'm just going to keep wrapping until that middle, and I'm going to keep pulling it tight too. Keep wrapping until that cluster stitch is completely hidden. Just try to do it a little neat as you can. It's pretty easy, it's not that hard. And then once I hit that other side, I'm just going to go back around to the other side one time. Just like that. Okay. And then I'm going to take this string and pull it to the back. And then I'm just going to turn it over and tie a double knot with these two strings. And I'm going to cut this string so that it's the same length as the other. Then I'm just going to tie a double knot back here. It's really easy. You just want to try to do it neat. Just going to tie a regular double knot like that. And so that is the beginning of our bow. All right, so I have tied my bow and I put a double knot in the back, and I have about 5 to 6 inches of a tail of both strings. So now we can just attach it to our headband. So what I'm gonna do is, I mean, there's multiple ways you could do this. You could sew it. I'm just simply going to place it here first and then tie a knot, a double knot around this headband first, or the ear warmer, or whichever one you have. I'm just going to tie a double knot first. I'm going to try to get it as tight as I can. And once I have it on there, I'm going to take my tapestry needle, if I can find it. There it is. I'm going to take my tapestry needle, and then I'm going to sew kind of like close to the front. I'm going to sew it to... My neighbor is working on a car. I'm gonna sew like some of this close to here. So I'm just going to take this string and use this for the top, and kind of attach it to like close to here, close to the bow, or to the little tie here. So I'm just gonna do like that and just pull it tight. One on the top, so I'm gonna use this one string for the top, and then I'm gonna use this other string on the bottom and do the same thing. So I just went through this close to the middle and then through this close to the middle, and then I'm going to just go directly to the other side and pull that through pretty tight, and then get close to the middle again on this side and kind of get a good spot here. It's a tight spot. Oh, I just had it. Go. Okay, and then I'm going to pull that tight. So you can do this a couple of times if you want to secure it pretty good. I'm going to probably do this twice, and then I'm going to weave in this tail. So I'm just going to do it one more time. And then I'm going to take a smaller hook and just kind of chain one so that it's on there pretty good. And then I'm going to weave that tail in. So after I chain one like that, I'm going to weave it in. But you can kind of sew this on, I mean, how you would like to. Just go ahead and make sure you secure the bottom as well, because you see how tight that is on the top, and this one's still pretty open. So I'm just going to do the same thing with this bottom string, and then chain one and then weave them both in, and we are finished. So you yeah, that's pretty much it. So you can see that for the headband, the difference between the headband and the headband's just a little thinner. It makes the bow look bigger because this headband is thinner. It's the same size headband, same size bow, but the headband is just bigger to cover your ears for the ear warmer. So, I mean, if you wanted, you could actually make this bow bigger if you wanted, and that's up to you. I tried to play with a bigger bow, but it was kind of too floppy for me. I kind of like it sitting and being stiff like this. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video. Leave me a comment, let me know how it turned out for you, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.